Welcome back to HGC. Our first series for North America is underway, with B-Step picking up the first win on Battlefield of Eternity, looking pretty good in doing so as well.
Yeah, the whole time felt pretty comfortable. You know, maybe a one team fight where they weren't that successful. Other than that, it was, their game, which is surprising considering it being Battlefield of Eternity for B-Step against No Tomorrow here. That for me is the biggest thing in that game. It's just being on Battlefield of Eternity and B-Step looking good the whole time. It's just something I am so not used to where now I question what I knew for the rest of the series.
Especially when you, again, look at the compositions. Having Li Ming, Greymane, Anubarak, Arthas, that looks like such a powerful composition for No Tomorrow to have, but I do think at least a little bit of it seemed to be uncomfortableness for No Tomorrow. Like I said, we usually see them defend a lot more, and they were a lot more focused on being the aggressors, knowing that we have Greymane, we have Li Ming, we should be trying to dive in, and sometimes the dives worked. Casanova was on point, but sometimes they couldn't quite get the follow-ups. They couldn't quite get the resets for Li Ming.
Yeah, it was. I agree with you. The fact that they were overly defensive, it did feel like that kind of affected their mentality and a lot of the decision-making in that game. And we'll see whether or not they have the thought process to be able to recover from that going into Game 2.
Game 2, we'll see what battleground it is going to be. Happens to be Dragonshire, which I looked at that and I thought, wait a second, No Tomorrow always picks first pick. And they still did, which means B-Step willing to take No Tomorrow to Dragonshire. That just screams confidence to me.
It very much does. But also, we already talked about the fact that even though No Tomorrow was one of the only teams picking Dragonshire before it was cool, aka part number 2, they also were not very successful on the map. So now that No Tomorrow is taken to B-Step's least comfortable map, at least statistically, it's now going to be the same for B-Step, taking No Tomorrow to their worst map.
And also, we have to talk about the fact that, again, these two teams are scrim partners, so it's very likely that this has already been a battleground that even if B-Step hasn't shown to be super comfortable on it yet, they very well could be, knowing that they scrim No Tomorrow so much.
Are we going to see heavy focus on the globals is going to be my biggest focus here for this draft. When does the Falstad and when does the Dahaka get picked up? Because, globals have only risen in power, it feels like, at least for North America and the European regions. We see a lot of priority onto those, even so much so Dignitas running, kind of the Abathur on Dragonshire, I believe is what we saw today. They've been picking up the Abathur a lot more recently.
Just a lot more Abathur play in general, but for North America, it seems relegated to Towers of Doom specifically.
Yeah.
Still, both of these teams have played a lot of Dahaka before. No Tomorrow is a team that doesn't necessarily feel like they have to have globals on Dragonshire. They are even willing to put more unconventional solo laners at the top. We've seen Anubarak, we've seen Arthas. But B-Step, in this position, last time they played Dragonshire in Part 2, picked Falstad Dahaka. I see no reason not to continue that. What do you think?
I agree. I don't, at least one of the two is a must, I feel like, for them in this part of the draft. The fact that we got the Zarya Tacita removed is not going to put any wrenches into the standard. Whether or not they want both, though, I think is up to them. You very much do not need to conform into picking two. And also, if you want to pick up the Falstad, forcing maybe a Dahaka on the side of No Tomorrow, you either force a pick on No Tomorrow, get a free ban, and then, or if they end up picking it, you can counter with, a very creative top lane. We've seen Probius be an attempt to be able to beat that human being who can beat Dahaka up in the top lane. But they are going to pick it up themselves and then get that Murden, once again removing what might be a comfortable warrior for No Tomorrow.
We knew warriors would be the point of contest for these teams, and B-Step, 2 games in a row now, has been able to get Murden. But No Tomorrow switching things up, this time not banning Malfurion versus B-Step getting in instead. This is one of the battlegrounds where they will focus on getting Malfurion.
I feel like No Tomorrow now, they have the opportunity to move in the Falstad. Again, it's going to be, they have to respond to it in some way. But do they want to pick it up? Like, my first thought is Falstad Arthas, but then also No Tomorrow has not been looking too good. That last game, even it kind of showed on the Arthas for Urho. So they go with the Tychus. Man.
An old comfort for them. But Jason generally preferring to play Tychus or Vala, sometimes Falstad too, especially if they can't get Zarya. Now, is this Arthas? Yeah. So Malfurion, Tychus, Arthas makes a nice, well-rounded 3 picks going into this next set of bans. Harder for B-Step to try to choke No Tomorrow out of any specific roles. Maybe just the top laner,
Yeah, but it also kind of feels like they already have. The fact that we see Urho restoring himself to the Arthas, and the fact that Murden is not going to be an option for them really does, you know, hurt them, because you can only put a limited amount of heroes to be able to match up into the Dahaka in the 1v1. And we've seen most of the time No Tomorrow is not a team that is willing to put the Arthas as that matchup.
I would like to see maybe Casanova's Leoric, if it's not banned here, to go up there.
That's a good point. He was pretty successful with that last week.
Yeah.
With the Leoric. And that might be enough to turn it around. I feel like it still hurts their overall team fighting with their draft if they move into the Leoric, but it is Dragonshire, where we know the laning phase kind of can last for what feels a while compared to other
The real
maps.
Battlefield of Eternity?
Yeah, it can. Yeah. What do we see for the second ban? It is, in fact, that false set I was talking about earlier. Not surprised to see that. Honestly, more surprised the fact that that took a minute to figure out as a ban for them. B-Step putting a lot of thought here into this draft.
I'm kind of surprised to see Falstad, because in general, the Falstad and Tychus player are the same person for No Tomorrow.
Yeah.
But B-Step with this fully control the global game. Unless No Tomorrow wants to get ETC, and I can tell you that has not been going well for teams.
Yeah, and that's one of those awesome kind of borders where a team has to decide what is the comfort problem versus like the objective draft problem, right?
Yeah.
B-Step volunteering more for the, we thinking having a lead through a global is going to benefit us more here on Dragonshire than it is worrying about like, well, you know, what is the comfort for the Falstad player? Well, it's the same as their Tychus, but they're just like, you know what? Falstad is so impactful that we don't even care if somebody, it's a secondary role for them. We just don't even want to risk allowing them have it.
That's a good point.
It's just fun whenever we get to, you know, when there's a direct point where you can be like, look at this, is this engagement and thought process here for the team into the draft. No Tomorrow is going to ban out the Lucio. No surprise with the Malfurion in their first pick, limiting B-Step.
Support still needed, but at this point, with Malfurion off the table and Lucio banned, potentially B-Step is more concerned with getting their backline set up and then getting the support at the very end. Do they pick Lunara again? Nazebo is still possible too.
I would like Nazebo more than the Lunara if that's the direction they go. I think it complements the 4-man a bit more. Lunara is just so poke-oriented, and it's only on maps where you know you can sit around an objective for a long period of times. Do I really, truly feel like she kind of outweighs the benefit of a Nazebo? But they disagree. They're going to pick it up.
They'll leave the last pick. Still sort of light on their wave clear.
They do have their top laner. It's about who wants to accent their 4-man.
Yeah. Rhaegar will help with that, though. The wave clear bit.
For No Tomorrow in their draft.
I am so curious what that last pick for B-Step is. Like, maybe a Kael'thas?
Yeah,
Do they murd into Rhonda?
I mean,
super old school?
It could be
full kill potential?
It really could go any way. Their draft is kind of blank enough to where they could commit to something all-any like a Jaina, or they could go for more, you know, health and survivability, and or even another warrior. Honestly, would be not unheard of for B-Step with their draft. 8 seconds left before we figure out what No Tomorrow wants to go. Do they go for the secondary warrior? Who's going to be their solo? It's going to be Casanova on the Thrall. And there's the Nazebo from the other side. That makes a new Barak kind of stand out to me here for B-Step if they want to move into a triple warrior. What else could it be? A Vala?
What about Kael'thas?
A KT? Now into the Nazebo Thrall Arthas. Kael'thas is not going to do enough damage. You will get a, when it comes to your team fighting, your laning phase will still be very, very dominant. It will have the burst maybe needed to be able to get a kill, as well as follow-up CC to Murden. I want something that can take out, you know, an Arthas Thrall and Nazebo a little bit better, though. Something less damage-oriented, but I can't figure out what it was going to be. They are going to go for a Medivh for B-Step here in this draft.
I was not anticipating that of all picks.
No, I figured it'd be something with more focus onto either the laning phase or their team fighting. They went for the team fight. So their now 4-man is going to actually struggle into that of No Tomorrow.
But they have Dahaka as the solo lane. So obviously their priority was there the whole time. They first picked him.
Yeah.
So they had this idea of being able to have Dahaka. He can brush talk in, although you're right. The 4-man is going to struggle versus No Tomorrow. No Tomorrow, because of that, may even be able to make more rotations up to the top to scare Dahaka a little bit in that lane because they have Nazeeba who can stall out waves.
Yeah, and Thrall's going to be pretty fine just into the Dahaka itself. He'll get pushed in slightly, but by no means is going to be afraid of losing his life. He can skirmish with the Dahaka just fine. And then the 4-man No Tomorrow takes off well enough to where I'm not totally sold. Originally, I looked at this and I felt pretty good for B-Step here in the draft, especially after that Murd and Lunara. But looking at the entirety of the comps, I again look at No Tomorrows and feel like it's got a little bit of everything. Nothing loses too hard, and where they do end up winning, it's going to be more frequent, more common in this game.
It's not often that we see a Thrall. What do you think they're going for, No Tomorrow having this? Besides the solo lane, are we going to see Sundering to try to catch Lunara where it was a difficult point before?
I mean, I think that would be the case is what we see, just because Portal can kind of negate Earthquake really quickly to the point where it just doesn't even matter. So it makes more sense to go with the Sundering, try and catch somebody off guard, and look to execute, especially if you can Sunder into an Arthas. It's kind of the best of both worlds, right? You get a little Earthquake on top of it. But yeah, I just, the main thing is to have a laner for the Dahaka, you know, sacrifices a bit on the team fighting front, but it's very okay into that matchup with him.
Well, guys, we are ready for game number 2 between B-Step and No Tomorrow. We're heading to Dragonshire. We'll see you inside.
The Medivh pickup for B-Step, man, that is just, it's so out of nowhere. And what that does to the map itself, pulling away from the macro play, but it feeds more to older B-Step, right? We've seen the new and improved kind of version of them with the coach and trying to better their drafting and their play, but this feels very, you know, when B-Step, when their back was ever against the wall or they kind of questioned what do we pick, it was always how do we kill them, right? It felt like it was the question they asked themselves. And it feels like they did that again here on this Dragonshire draft.
Will aid in the supporting of the rest of the team, but it does feel like there's going to be a lot on the shoulders of Lunara, who's played by McIntyre this time instead of iDream, who's playing that Medivh.
Yeah, see, it's one of the two, you know, because it comes down to either iDream has to play out of his mind on the Medivh itself, or that if he doesn't, then it puts more pressure onto McIntyre. I feel like either one can make it up, especially, you know, in a perfect world where Medivh plays out of his mind. I feel like he's just impactful enough of a character where you can get away a win, or maybe you weren't deserving of it. K1 Pro is going to be caught in that tri-lane gank. The portal dropped. Will Urho go down? Nope. One death coil, and he's okay for now.
He's trying to run around and get back at the same time, but the slows? Oh my, that was not expected for B-Step. Nice job from No Tomorrow. And that is, again, what I go back to, because Talking Trees is so good at being able to hang out in this lane, clear out the minions, and even stall out waves with his zombie wall. And Tiger JK in the mid has Moonburn. He can clear this out too. No Tomorrow has more freedom to rotate around and get ganks like that, and they're starting off strong.
Yeah, that's exactly what we were talking about with, you know, the B-Step going into the Medivh, put more focus on the team fight itself, less into the laning. And on Dragonshire, that usually means that you can then, your opponents know tomorrow with the superb wave clear that they have and laning control that they have, allows for those kind of free ganks there in the top lane. We'll see if No Tomorrow can keep up that momentum that they've managed to pick up, especially with the, you know, the ring around the rosy that Urho is willing to play there with the minions.
APM did get Lightning Bond to try to help out with wave clear later on. Splintered Spear from Lunara will help too, but still, it's going to be a struggle, and it's up to them to try not to lose out too much in the lanes, especially losing out in the ammo of the towers. Once No Tomorrow start to take those down. Howling Blast catches, nicely done once again by Urho here. True understanding of how to play around these portals.
It's allowing them to get the peel here, and is the reason their team has the threat of the Dragonite, but Dahaka is going to quickly restore the balance of the world. No Tomorrow backs out, though. They're going to pick up a giant camp. B-Step figures this out. They have sniffed it out. But it looks like they're going to give it up here for free. No Tomorrow. Whenever you can back out and get the Giants like that and not lose a Dragonite, it is a win-win but it looks like this is going to cost them a Dragonite.
Yeah.
No.
Howling Blast stops once, but there's no way Airho can stall this out again. So getting the Giants, but taking a little while to do so, maybe being too spread out, and B-Step's ability to hold onto those points gets them the first Dragonite of the game. And this alleviates so much pressure, especially losing Casanova in top 2. It gives B-Step a big power play to try to nullify some of the damage they did take.
It's really awesome to look at the first 3 minutes of this game. We had 3 moments where the laning pressure or the lack thereof has led to a team capitalizing somewhere onto the map. Hold on a minute here. Tiger JK gets the Storm Bat out. K1 Pro even burrowing behind Talking Trees. And this is going to be a double kill going over to B-Step, only furthering what seems like a lead. I guess experience-wise, they're pretty close to even. But they have better control, it feels like, over this game, at least for now.
Patient play from K1 Pro as well to wait until last minute to make sure you get the drag to secure the kill. That nets level 7, slightly faster for B-Step. And that is the big moment, as always, when you have a Medivh on your team. Getting the Master's Touch, starting to build that up, trying to get those stacks as fast as possible without losing your life and losing all of those stacks.
But so on that note that I was talking about, with every time we see a team backing out to look to try and gain an advantage, man, I keep trying to bring it up, but then quickly the teams just, go into death ball mode. Cap.
Too much action.
Dude, so stressful.
So can't talk. Please continue.
But it just comes down to every time we see a team pull something away from the lanes itself, and the balance of the lanes, the other team gains something. Every single time that we see that. And that is why Dragonshire, you have to keep track of when the team back out to actually get the Knights themselves, why that's in the downtime, not when the Dragon Knight's up itself, for instance. It just comes down to, No Tomorrow decides they win a Giant, they lose a Dragon Knight. The Dragon Knight's applying too much pressure mid, therefore a gank onto bottom. It's just whoever gains that small momentum in the laning suddenly can capitalize and further it elsewhere into a different lane. And that is, something we've come to know of Dragonshire, but it's just awesome to see when it's almost like a math problem where you're like, well, No Tomorrow has the advantage on mid, therefore it means, like, look at the side lane. What can they apply into that one, right? And that's where all 5 kills of this game have come from so far.
It's great to see that from these teams too, in that they are figuring out the situations enough that they see where, yes, we might be losing out here, but what can we gain? Can we gain more? It reminds me a lot of the series we saw between Teammate and Gale Force Esports, where Gale Force, someone would get picked, and whether or not they died or were able to somehow miraculously fly out, looking at you, Michael Udall, Gale Force made sure to capitalize elsewhere and get more from it.
This is just brutal to watch those guys just slap each other, And that is what most top lanes look like. Calf actually got scattered out there by the Lightning. So he's going to know he's there for that gank. Bottom shrine captured by No Tomorrow. Top is in control of B-Step.
There's going to be a small amount of time, if B-Step can clear out a couple more minions, where they will have heroics over. But No Tomorrow used this time to get Giants too, so they're going to lose out on the bottom. But in communication with Casanova top, he said he could go get top. That will stall out a little bit longer until No Tomorrow can get heroic abilities. But they are here for B-Step. Thornwood Vine over Leaping Strike this time is the difference for Lunara. And we have Leyline Seal for Medivh. The standard choice, but occasionally in NA we will see Polybomb.
Yeah, we have managed to experience a Polybomb or two here in North America. No Tomorrow's got their heroics, though.
Sunder. Nope, Earthquake.
It's going to be the Earthquake choice here, so we'll see how that pays out with the Leyline Seal we were talking about. Tiger JK is out of position for now, forcing the Twilight Dream. Only going to land onto King Caffeine there. Portal and Shield is going to be fine. He is going to be able to move out. Both shrines captured here by B-Step, but No Tomorrow's not done. They're trying to force their Howling Blast landing onto 2, Ancestral and shielding. Once again, No Tomorrow force a fight, but B-Step has all the answers to minimize their losses.
B-Step still has Leyline Seal again as well, so another situation where they have an important heroic ability to be able to start a fight. Casanova drops Earthquake, drag, pulls Casanova back in. APM even dives in too. Leyline Seal hits the rest, unable to be able to help out at the end. And No Tomorrow have lost 1, now 2, probably 3 with a nice butt bite. APM gets that 3rd kill, and B-Step now with a 3-for-0 trade.
But that's going to allow B-Step to capture both of the shrines and look for a Dragon Knight. They're actually going to capture the Giant Camp first before B-Step moves towards that mid lane and picks up the Dragon Knight. The focus for that Dragon Knight should be on at least bottom fort. We'll see if they spend any time wasting it on mid, actually going towards top.
Because they're going to split.
Because the giant pressure on bottom.
They're splitting the pressure.
Okay.
Putting No Tomorrow in a choose how you lose situation.
So how No Tomorrow should choose to lose is honestly top. Just because, again, we know that bottom is going to be the most valuable lane. You see the Dragon Knight and you're like, man, this guy is big and scary, throws lightning. I should probably kill him. That is pretty neat and all, but it's not nearly as impactful as what the threat of the Giants on bottom could be into the long run. And actually, by K1 Pro, pretty much just suiciding that Dragon Knight, No Tomorrow actually has a window on bottom here where they could have taken advantage of the Dragon Knight up on top.
Yeah, Tychus and Nazebo cleared it out fast, but those were the two ranged all the way up in the top, which left Thrall, Arthas, and Malfurion to try to deal with the bottom lane. So B-Step do take out the bottom fort, the fort that, as you mentioned, would be more likely, the nicer of the two to secure, because there are 3 mercenary camps you can push in the bottom lane. That tends to be the lane where you win the game through.
It's just such a, you know, it's weird how that played out. Yes, they do draw too many resources up on top to rid of that Dragon Knight, but No Tomorrow also didn't need to commit that many. K1 Pro was very voluntarily removing its HP. And once it fell below, like, you know, even 50% with this early Dragon Knight isn't that impactful. And No Tomorrow could have just all-in commit and be like, all right, there's the 1v1 on top. Okay, we're fine. We can look to try and draw a fight elsewhere.
Yeah, if they 5v forward in the bottom, they might even have made B-Step drop the Dragon Knight so that Dehaka could brush talk in.
That's the threat we know of in early Dragon Knight, right?
Yeah.
It's just so bad at team fighting. Can you just force around it early game, and can you know, take the advantage? Oh, even though your opponent has the better laning phase and has the Dragon Knight, it oftentimes is you're the team who's losing those skirmishes, lose too many members, and your Dragon Knight is essentially worthless.
Well, it has paid off for B-Step, though. The risk was rewarded with a fort down and a level lead. B-Step with a 13 advantage. K1 Pro's caught from this gank, has Essence, has Adaptation, using both to stay alive, and will do so all the time, all the while B-Step capturing the mercenary camps in bottom. They've already stolen the Giants from No Tomorrow's side of the battleground and getting the Bruisers to continue that pressure. So B-Step, where they were in the very early game having issues with the wave clear, the pressure that No Tomorrow could put on the lanes, now because they've gotten this massive advantage of being able to keep No Tomorrow at bay.
And with the pressure they have through bottom, Dehaka capturing top, Medivh capturing bottom, No Tomorrow has a small window where both of these shrines captured by B-Step. They got to try and stop, win a fight here. And it's going to start with the Howling Blast. Zombie Wall is dropped around Calf. He falls oh so low, even Dwarf tossing away, but he manages to stay alive. So No Tomorrow doesn't get the advantage that they so desperately want yet.
Feral Spirit was also used in that too, so once King Caffeine Dwarf tossed over Thrall, there was nothing to lock him down and try to get the kill after that. Tiger JK is trying to use all these roots he can. That Loon's Grace paying off in dividends, but it's only a matter of time until B-Step get this Dragon Knight unless one of the shrines can be captured.
Dream off on his own, pops the Force of Will and the portal away. 16 is still yet to be achieved, but Dehaka is going for the extra wave there up on top to be focused on that. There is the 16 Talontier, and B-Step just aggressive by casually dropping the ley line and saying, all right, you can't run away from this one. This is going to be our fight. Good ice block, though, from Tiger.
Yeah, that was amazing, but still, No Tomorrow are willing to commit to this despite the fact that they do not have level 16. It is such a disadvantage to be down 16 talent tier, not getting a kill right away. They give up the Dragon Knight. Let's see how much B-Step can get done with it.
They've already got top and bottom fort. Might as well clean up mid for now. But then let's see where they go. If it's going to be the focus through bottom, they don't even waste time up on the mid fort, dropping the portal. Going here to this bottom keep. An 11-minute Dragon Knight. They still have to play it properly if they're going to be able to pick this up.
There's no ley line seal for 30 more seconds. That's the nicest thing, nicest news No Tomorrow has heard all game. Trying to burn this Dragon Knight down before they lose their keep. Dream stuck in a zombie wall, but does have the portal to get himself back. Casanova's flanking with Earthquake, though.
He dropped the Earthquake, and Odin is trying to get that damage out there. A lot of damage onto Urho, though. He falls very low. Ancestral did connect. The Twilight Dream only on the Calf. It cost him his life. Muradin down for B-Step. There goes the adaptation proc onto K1 Pro, but the portal should be able to get him out.
Casanova has fallen so dangerously low, but his self-sustain plus the supporting of Tiger JK has kept the entire team alive. And No Tomorrow, down 16 talent here, gets a kill on the tankiest of heroes in B-Step's lineup. They do not save their keep, but at least they're fighting back.
B-Step has managed to gain this lead once again, and we know them to be the late game team. So the fact that in the first game they had to lead the entire time, this one with No Tomorrow, it was a bit closer for the very start of it all. But I have confidence now with B-Step. You know, now that we've made it past that level 16 mark, it really feels like that is where they are the best form of B-Step that they can be.
Yeah, so much so that we've even heard from them. We need to clean up our early game. If we could clean up our early game, our team fighting is solid, especially once we get to the late game. We feel very comfortable there. And they even told me that they feel the most confident this week out of any week because they feel like they do the best at the end of a patch, once they've taken time to figure out their drafting. So if that's the case, we are switching patches next week. So it's time for B-Step to get all the wins in they can.
Yeah, you know, it might be, you know, put them in the bank, if you will, kind of store them up for a rainy weekend because they might be next weekend. The fact that we're going to be moving over to the Cassia patch. But for now here on the Probius patch in this game number 2 between No Tomorrow and B-Step, B-Step has the Dahaka up on top there as we have another Dragon Knight phase spawning. And they're going to be able to, again, we've seen it time and time again. It feels like just watch B-Step pick up all the shrines, put too much pressure onto No Tomorrow, and then how's No Tomorrow going to respond? The only difference now is No Tomorrow has hit that late game Nazebo power spike and has the same talent here. So this is probably the final fight where they have an opportunity to turn this game around.
And No Tomorrow have bottom lane pushed out enough that they can hold on to one of the shrines. So now B-Step chooses where to get that fight started, or if they're even going to at all, with Dahaka still soaking up in the top lane and nobody responding to him. Everyone out in the mid, in the bottom for No Tomorrow, trying to find a pick where they can, but B-Step is not giving it to them. And as long as B-Step just stays safe.
Anybody ever wondered why, when we often talking about Dragonshire and when the globals come in, how I say if you do not have the global advantage, or at least are even in globals, you never get to choose which fight you take. That was a prime example.
Yes.
B-Step right there just did exactly what you should do. You go, all right, well, I love the fact that you're spending your time on bottom here, No Tomorrow, but my Dahaka is just going to keep split pushing up until you answer to him. And when you do, he casually burrows away, captures the other side, gets pressure there, and then just furthers his advantage. He is constantly going to be cycling out the same rotation up until B-Step has a strong enough lead to where they don't care about split pushing anymore. They're more worried about the fight, and that is just a couple of seconds away here as 20 is creeping in here for B-Step.
And B-Step had all their forts. They were like, that's nice that you want to hang out in these lanes, but our Dahaka is pushing down your keep tower's top, and we're just going to hang out at our forts for a little while, get a cup of tea, chill out, maybe get a snack, wait till 20, which is almost here as you look at it. And now, what can No Tomorrow do with this 2-level deficit and Storm talents and Dragon Knight available for B-Step?
It looks like their first answer to try and stop some of the bleeding is going to be a giant camp, but the Dragon Knight is here for B-Step. 1 minute and 20 seconds. What can they make happen for it? It looks like they're going for core, which is not as easy as it looks here at 60 minutes into this game.
Oh, it is if they take out Tiger JK, who already had to use Ice Block, being caught by the aggressive portals from B-Step. Tiger JK is just walking in. He's going to hit as many people as he can with his Twilight Dream, but they're still trying to take him down. He dodges the ley line seal left and right, but finally, his life is lost. So is Thrall. 2 kills for B-Step. Looking at Airho for a 3rd. And with this Dragon Knight now pushing onto the core, this should be game number 2, taken by B-Step.
B-Step had a little less time where it was, you know, absolute control here on Dragonshire, but very much going to share the same fate of game number 1. This series is going to be going 2-0 for B-Step, 1 game away from being able to lock it in. And, you know, it's just furthering the answer here that B-Step is going to be the superior team after the new and improved parts for both of these teams here in part 2. No Tomorrow getting the upset over GFE, and then B-Step over Team 8. B-Step's showing they are the better team. Once again, taking that middle of the pack and just kind of going like, you know what? Boop. Give the old switch.
Flipperoon. Turn the wheel. Who's looking strong today? It seems to be B-Step. They're not done with the series yet, but 2-0 is a super comfortable spot to be in the series. And B-Step, we have been waiting and watching for all of the changes that they've been promising. You know, they're getting a coach. They switched out K1 Pro to Melees. When was all this going to pay off for them? And it looks like it was last week a little bit and now fully into this week.
You know, it's starting off to work for them, but again, it comes down to like, what is it worth? You know, like I genuinely mean like right now, as a fan of HGC in North America, when you say, well, at least we took out No Tomorrow, what does that mean in terms of how, you know what I mean? What I'm trying to say here, to truly gauge any team other than Tempo Storm right now is near impossible, it feels like. You know, I'm just trying to ask myself, you know, when I go in after the end of the day and I go, you know what, B-Step, if they manage to take out No Tomorrow, that's what they did. And they should be proud of that. It's something where it's like, well, duh, No Tomorrow's been at the bottom of the stands the whole time. I would have said that normally, right? But it's like they got Gale Force.
Yeah.
Better than, you know, we saw B-Step get over Team 8. It's just, where does it stop? Where does it end? What is it worth? It's just, I can't find the answer.
At what cost are we destroying the NA standings?
You know what? It's just, it's hard for my brain to process.
It is. It's really hard. I totally agree, especially, again, because we look at this, and these are two teams who know each other really well. So even if they didn't, it might be a different tale. But it's not done yet. We're just done with Game 2. We'll have Game 3 right after this break. See you soon.